3D is all the rage in web design, and for good reason. Add some 3D to a website and it elevates it. It makes it a little something more. It adds a little bit of spice to the design. So in this video, I'm gonna show you how to build your own 3D assets using a tool called Spline, or sample from a library of other people's designs, and then actually implement them into your Framer website without writing a single line of code in just a few minutes. All right, we have a website that we're building here in Framer, and we have this homepage hero section with a perfect spot, prime real estate for a 3D asset. Now, I'm not gonna go into the whole building of this Framer layout because I've done entire courses, free content on this channel and over in the Design Champs community. You could find that link in a card up here somewhere or down in the description. Learn how to use Framer because it's an amazing tool. But what I really wanna do is get some assets or some sort of asset in here really quickly, and that will lead us to the tool of the day, which is Spline. Spline is a place where you can actually design in 3D. And if you're not hip to this whole 3D design thing, don't worry about it. I'm not great at it myself, but thankfully the Spline community has tons of files that you can remix, really simple tutorials that you can take. You can get pretty decent at it pretty quick. So sign up for a free Spline account, and when you do, you'll log into your kind of dashboard or home screen. Have all the files maybe that we're working on, bunch of really tutorials, which I highly recommend you take. They're totally worth the time, super awesome, as well as a bunch of examples from the library. Now up here on the right hand side, we can create a brand new file. We can even ask AI to generate a little something for us. We click on that, we start to imagine what we want, and it'll build us right here. It'll build it for us right here on the stage. But let's go back to our files, because we can also jump down to the community, and in the community, this is where you can start shopping. You can find all these amazing assets, particle effects, 3D objects, abstract stuff, devices, you name it, you can find it, search for it, and people have just put in the work. I'm not as good as these people, so we're gonna sample some of these people's amazing work. I've actually already done that, and I found a file that I liked. When I find that file, you basically just go in and you remix it, and it becomes a new copy, a new version of your own. So let's open up that file, because that's the one we wanna work on. Now, once we're inside of our project file, you can see we have our 3D element here on stage. On the left-hand side, you got your layers panel, just like most design tools. Layer panel on the left, properties on the right, tools on the top. You got all that kind of good stuff. We also have some assets that we can jump to, all that kind of cool things. We have a bunch of tools up top, like I said, and that contextual panel down the right-hand side. But the real magic is all the 3D action that's happening here on the top. Now, I'm holding down my Option or my Command key, and I'm moving around, and I can move this around in 3D space. And you'll notice we're looking at this in a view, like a camera view. I can actually right-click and say reset the camera to wherever that camera setting was already or initially placed. Okay, so that's pretty cool. Now, when we press the preview here, we can see that we have some interactions taking place. Not only is it kind of following around on my mouse, but as I hover over the buttons, you can see that it's actually clicking the buttons up and down, which is super cool. Let's close that, and let's investigate a little bit on how we got there, what they did to create that interaction, and let's introduce you to something called states and events. We're not going to deep dive into it. Again, we're just going to cover it briefly, and then we're going to sample this element because it's really cool. When we go to the different keys that we have here, you'll notice that each key is grouped. It has a cube and it has a text, and they've done the work to make that look all that 3D awesomeness, but they can actually grab the key here. Notice that key 1, and over on the right side in the properties panel, we have a couple of different states. You have the base state, right? That's the default state that we have. And then you have state 2, which is going to be it pressed down, the key pressed up and key pressed down, just like so. And we have a bunch of events, and events are always tied to states. So we're going to trigger a different state to occur when something happens. In this case, it's saying, hey, when you when you hover over something, we want that key to go down, right? Just like so. And so we're just kind of like dictating things based off of states and events. We also have a little bit of this movement that's happening. Let's actually, close that and get back over here. I'm going to hold down space and move this back into the center where it's at, and then rotate it back to a spot that I like it. We can also press Command, minus, or plus to kind of zoom in or out, but I think this looks pretty good. And we can also go to the export settings here, and this is how we're actually going to get into sharing our element or bringing it into Framer. There's a lot of different ways that you can share. You can grab code, the viewer, public URL, you can do embed codes, all sorts of stuff. And you're gonna wanna play with this to figure out which one has the best performance based off of the asset that you're using. But I'll show you a couple tips here on the ones that I use. I do always like to go directly into the overview here, and I like to just double check. Do we want the spline logo showing? No, definitely not. We don't need any of this, but you can also run a test to see if this thing is optimized. How good will it load? And if we get green like this, man, we are in the money. It might be a really large element or a really large thing to load. That's going to be a little bit tougher on your website. Keep in mind, the more of these that we add to our website, the more it's actually going to affect the performance on our website. So you want to add these sparingly and make sure that you're art directing in a way where not everything is whizzing and popping and moving in 3D, but the crucial elements are, like this one. This is a crucial element for us. Let's jump over to the play settings, because here is where you can add some more of those kind of settings. We can say, do we want there to be a background color? Do we want it to orbit? That's it actually moving in 3-dimensionality like that. Yes, we do. We have touch settings, and then we have hover settings. Notice if I take those hover settings off, come back and press play, I no longer am getting my element to hover. So that's a really, really quick way to turn hovering on and off. Now, I want that hover effect, but there's a different way to do this that I think is going to work better for me. I'm going to grab all of the elements inside of my layers panel. I'm going to group them, and then I'm going to add states and events just like we talked about before. So why don't we add a state here? Doesn't matter. I don't need those states to change right now, just situationally. But then I'm going to add a new event, and I'm going to make sure that that event is going to be a follow or look at. Let's try look at really quickly and press play. Notice now I get that same functionality. Now, why did I do this? Because once I get into my website, I want to make sure that it's going to follow my cursor no matter where I'm at. If I'm low on the page, left side of it, off the embed area, I want to make sure that it keeps looking for my cursor, and that's exactly what we've done. Now that we have that, we're going to press export. I like to use this public URL, and I like to update that public URL. It's going to update all of those settings, and then all we have to do is copy this link. Why don't we come back over to Framer and start to add that embed? I'm going to go up here and insert. I'm just going to scroll over to the side really quickly. I'm just going to look for an embed, and there you go, just a good old generic embed. I'm going to drag that in like so, and we have a couple of options inside of Framer. Either you can grab the actual embed code and put HTML in here, or if you happen to have some sort of really cool URL like we do, we're going to use that. And I'll pop that right in there and press tab to get through it, and boom, it's grabbed our asset, it's grabbed our element, and it's embedded it inside. I'm going to bring the size of that thing up, and notice that as I start to resize, I don't get a whole lot of resizing options here. As I start to move it, it stays pretty contained. That's because inside of Spline, you can do a lot of stuff. You can actually create responsive versions of it when the browser size drops down below a certain point. You can do the resizing there, or you can just contain it here and do what I like to do, which is just add a little bit of scale to it. All right, here we are inside of our project, and I'm gonna grab my 3D element that's inside of my embed. I'm gonna put it inside of a frame. Why inside of a frame? Because I need to be able to control this thing a little bit more. Elements inside of frames, I can actually transform. So I'm actually gonna remove that background, grab the element inside, and then move over to my transform, and you can see I can add a scale property. I can remove this rotation property. I don't need that anymore, but I can scale it up or down just like that. Now, once that's done, I can actually grab this entire frame. I can actually Command X, and let's get it inside of our hero like so. And I'm going to change the positioning to be absolute position like that. Let's do 0 there, and we'll start to drag this into place, just moving around my numbers. And again, we'll put it right over here on this side. Now, we do have some content, some text, a text box that's actually moving around. We can drag this thing around, but it's not really going to affect anything. We need to affect the Z index to make sure that our 3D element stays on top. So we actually have a Z index property inside of styles. Why don't we just move that up to something like 9? Something like that will work. And now let's press play. Notice that as we move around, our box isn't getting away. It's actually following our mouse, and we get that really cool interaction. Now, what's also really cool about this is we can style these. We can add animation, interactions to them right here inside of Framer. as well. I can grab my frame and I can add an effect, and I can do something like a really simple scroll speed. Let's add a negative speed, something like 70 here. So as we start to move down the page, notice as I scroll that it's going to scroll almost in a parallax way. And that just adds that much more to this effect. It feels really, really good. Now there's a lot of settings you can play with inside of Spline. You can actually allow people to zoom and pan and move around on your image if you want to. But let's take a look at one more example of something we could bring into our project from Spline to add a little bit of spice to this project. We're gonna head back over to our Spline workspace. I'm just gonna head back there. I actually found this really cool particle effect that somebody had made inside of the community. I'm gonna press play and you can kind of see it happening. As I move my mouse over it, it starts to move and change the particles, which is really, really cool. I've gone ahead and already removed the background from this, and I had nothing to do with this amazing animation. All I did was remove the background, position it a little bit, and get it the right way. So I'm gonna hit export here. I'm gonna copy that link. I'm gonna come back over to Framer, and I'm gonna bring this frame and just hold down Option. I'm gonna drag a new version here. I'm gonna make it sit on top. So now technically we have two of these things sitting inside. I'm gonna grab this first one and I'm gonna rename it something like keyboard, and this next one I'm gonna call it particle, like that. And let's go ahead and just turn the visibility of this one off. So visible, no. And now we can come up to particle, hit that embed, go down and find that URL spot and paste our new URL inside. Now again, we might want to add a little bit of scale to this, right? So let's start to scale it up like so. And we can actually move our particle around in here a little bit more. Let's press play on this one. That's a totally different vibe, but absolutely amazing. So sensational the way that that looks inside of our project. And again, as we scroll, we get not only the particle effect, but we get that speed transition. Within just a few minutes, you can actually change, remix, and implement a 3D asset from Spline into Framer like this, and you'll blow people's minds. It elevates it and just takes your design to the next level. What do you think? Are you gonna use this technique in your next website project? Let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts and start a discussion. Also, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. I do lots of content on design, development, and amazing tools like Spline and Framer. So make sure you ring the bell, stick around so you know when the next video comes out. I hope you're having an amazing week. I hope you're designing amazing things, making amazing things. We'll see you in the next one.